First story. I'm less patient and forgiving since my 41M WW's 47 FEA wife of 13 years had EA with coworker. We're in R, but I find it much harder to tolerate the things about her and our relationship that I've never liked, and it's depressing me. First post. Been lurking for a while and thought it might be helpful for me to at least process some of my thoughts here. In early 2023, my wife of 13 years came to me feeling bad about feeling like she wanted attention from other men. She described it as being purely in her head and she hadn't pursued anything. I wasn't super upset, as she is normally very hard on herself. High control religious upbringing, and it's not a completely abnormal thing to wonder if people find us attractive, etc. In the spring she came to me again, admitting the same thing but saying she had been actively seeking out the attention a man she works with, being flirtatious at work and sending messages frequently via text, Instagram and work chat. I was more upset this time, saying that well, feelings are one thing, I wouldn't want her acting on those feelings. We talked it out and she was very apologetic, but I still left the house for a couple hours to cool off mentally. This is a big deal for me, as I'm a very even-tempered person, not quick to anger or strong displays of emotion. She agreed to stop communicating with the person at work except for work matters. Fast forward to late September 2023, and we're sitting on the couch after a really fun night with some friends. We were just being lazy, scrolling on her Instagram, laughing at memes, etc., when I see a notification at the top of the screen for a message from the guy. My heart sinks, but I try to give her the benefit of the doubt that maybe he's just reaching out and she isn't reciprocating. A few days go by and I can't shake the feeling something is going on, knowing I'm snooping. I don't ever do this, even though WW has snooped through my phone constantly since we got married. I reluctantly open up Instagram on our computer knowing she had been logged in there. I go to her messages and lo and behold, there's a conversation between the two of them from the night we were with friends, and I saw the notification. The messages only go back to that evening, so I have no idea what's gone on before, but he's telling her he's out driving Uber, and she says come pick me up. He replies send me your location, and she says one day I will pay you to drive around with me, and he responds you don't have to pay me, and it ends there. This had all been going on while I was upstairs putting our 3 kids to bed for the night. That night I confront her, saying I saw the messages and I know she's still been talking to him. At first she is angry with me for looking through her messages, but I explain about seeing the notification, etc., and I know she's just being defensive. I press in and demand to know what's going on, and she finally admits she had not been able to stop seeking out his attention. She frames it as an addiction that she can't control, and uses the endorphin hit she gets from it to escape feeling bad. I calmly but seriously explained how hurt and disrespected I felt, and that she needed to decide what was more important to her, getting validation and the rush pursuing someone, or what we have in our relationship and our family. She is quiet for what seems like minutes, so I finally tell her to go for a walk and think about it. She does, and maybe 30 or 40 minutes later she comes back into the kitchen and apologizes and says she wants to be better and make it work. I agree but reiterate how hurt I am and that I'm gonna need time to process. She reluctantly agrees to me sleeping in our guest room for a bit. She was worried about what the kids would think. I just told them I needed a change of surroundings for a few nights to sleep well, to give me some space. We talk a few more times over the next couple of days, and I get what is, as far as I know, full disclosure about everything. She admits it was an EA, but said it was never physical, and that often AP wouldn't give her the time of day, and that was what made her so determined. That when she could get his attention it was like she wanted and made her feel extra worthy. AP is also married. The notion that she was seeking attention from AP, because she has never been happy with my level of communication or emotional expression, the most common topic of arguments in our house, and another long post on its own probably gets brought up, and I explain how hurtful that is, since she is fully aware that she has anger issues and generalized anxiety that are pervasive in her life that I don't enjoy. But I'm mature enough to handle that stuff without getting emotionally involved with other women. She gets mad surprise about this, but later recants and agrees I'm right. I also tell her that I no longer want her to accompany on a trip I'm about to go on for 5 days. Plan was for her to come along as I was traveling back to my hometown for a performance with a band I used to play with. She is upset but gets it, and agrees. Meanwhile, she pressures me to not say anything to friends or family I see, as she's worried about what they'll think of her. I go on the trip, and take her old phone with me. No longer active but still signed in for our kids to text friends etc. Has all the data back to a year prior. Again, I know it's snooping and not really immature, but I really had the sense I wasn't getting the whole scope of things. Sure enough, I look back through text between her and friends during the time after her confession in the spring and my discovery in September. And she's talking to them about how she thinks about him all time, and how when he left work for a few weeks on vacation, she cried frequently because she missed him. And her clear infatuation with this person goes back almost a year and a half. I text her and reveal I know all this and how I found out. She of course reacts with anger that I looked at her messages, even though she told me I have full access to her phone now, and that she snoops through my phone near daily. But I explain that what is so hurtful is how she painted things as this thing going on in her mind, wanting attention from other men, when in reality she had been specifically trying to get close to someone, and after even admitting that later on she continued and actively hid it from me. She eventually admits how messed up it all has been, not without getting a subtle hint that my quiet personality is partially at fault. And also says if I need to talk to anyone about it while I am gone, that's okay. We get through the trip, saying we both want to make it work. More conversations follow over the next few weeks, and we do a couple sessions with a counselor my wife had been seeing. But it becomes pretty clear to me early on that the counselor is more interested in digging into my childhood and working on me than addressing our current problem. I bail on her, but my wife is continuing IC and also been trying to get into Love Addicts Anonymous meetings, but they're hard to find, especially ones that aren't all men. We have been doing pretty well. She still works with AP, but has gone NC apart from completely essential work stuff as far as I know. She really is trying to work on herself, addressing addictive behaviors, quit drinking, got off social media, etc. and staying in counseling. We're doing okay, and have some great times, but I still have some bad days where I think about things more. My biggest problem right now is that every negative part of her personality, easily angered, often anxious, kind of controlling that I used to be able to take in stride, forgive and move on now feels like way more of a big deal to me. I've had a couple instances where I snapped back at her about how she was treating me, which is not like me at all. In the light of her EA, the last 13 years feel far more heavy on my heart than I thought. It's easy for me to get in a headspace where I wonder, have I ever really been happy in our marriage? If I'm totally honest, our 3 kids, 10, and 12, are what have kept me going and made me decide to keep reconciling. If we were childless, I would have ended things. But I do love her, I can't help that. And she does have some great qualities and we often have a lot of fun. However, I find myself viewing our relationship with the opposite of rose-colored glasses. She claims she has disclosed everything, but I'm sure you know how doubt creeps in after experiencing something like this. But she is continuing IC and trying to seek counseling or a group for love addiction. She's basically doing everything right in our. I think I'm just having trouble convincing myself it will be worth it if I'm not even going to be treated well in our relationship. I think for me to be able to communicate these things would be a good step, Part of my dilemma is that most times I try to share something difficult or unpleasant or unexpected with her. The conversation ends up focused around her emotional reaction to what I said, which we've also talked about, but it continues. So I'm conditioned to think sharing my feelings with her isn't safe, and that how my feelings affect her is more important than the actual things I'm going through. Sorry, this is half venting. I know if it's going to get better, I have to learn to be honest and see if change is possible. Thanks again for your input. So now we're 8 months post due date. Any advice for me? Update. I think I might be done. You can see more details of my story in my previous post, but long story short, my 41M wife, 47F, admitted to an EA with a coworker last summer. Then I caught her continuing to message AP in secret in September and gave the NC ultimatum, but gave her the choice about staying at her job or leaving. She stayed and we agreed only absolutely necessary and professional contact with AP was acceptable and have been pursuing ours since. She has been in ICN1 meeting for Love Addicts Anonymous. She's definitely latched onto the addiction angle as being how she looks at what happened. Fast forward to last week, she went on a quick trip with her sister to DC just for some downtime. I pick her up from the airport late Saturday night and immediately can tell something is off. I think maybe she's just worn out from travel etc., but can't shake it, so while she was in the shower the next morning I looked at her phone. Open phone policy was part of our agreement. A string of texts to her sister, talking about how she feels bad, that she basically spent the whole trip texting with AP, but no sign of those texts on her phone. So she's continuing contact with AP and hiding it from me. That was yesterday. I somehow managed to keep my cool for most of the day but was breaking out in an anxious sweat and could feel my face hot the whole day. When she laid down to take a nap in the afternoon, I made an excuse that I needed to head into my work for a bit. I called my brother-in-law, husband of WW's sister, who has been my one confidant through this whole thing, and he came to meet me and talk. I ended up telling him that I'm pretty sure I'm done with trying to salvage this marriage, and that even though it would probably be possible to continue, I'd only be doing it for the stability of my kids, who are 10 and 12, and I don't like the person that I've become because of this whole situation. I don't want to be constantly wondering if I'm enough for my partner or be policing her phone. I don't want to wait while she attempts to work through her disordered attachment and limerence issues. Am I being too rash here? I know art could still be possible, but after this I just have zero desire to make it happen. Again, apart from how divorce might impact my kids who mean the world to me. Bill and myself are pretty close and he agreed to not mention to his wife yet, for that very reason. But it is just not in my character to make empty threats to get what I want. Maybe what I need to do is confront her and communicate that this puts serious doubts in my mind about us continuing our relationship. And make it clear that is a decision that I need to think about and come to myself. The only problem with this analogy is that if she's a love limerence addict, there is nowhere she won't be presented with temptation opportunity to relapse. It's like if she was an alcoholic but public drinking fountains put out booze. How do you ever feel secure with someone like that? Update. D-Day number 2. Well, I wrote out a 5-page letter, confronting my WW about her continued contact with EAAP and hiding it from me. I had my brother-in-law watch my kids and read it to her after she got back from work. I held nothing back. I explained how hurt and disappointed I was with having to go through this hell a second time, detailed the ways that I have felt uncared for in our marriage, and owned my part of that. How I just kept the peace and didn't stand up for myself, and how going through a second discovery made me feel like the effort I've tried to put in to be a good husband feels wasted on someone who is showing me I can't trust them. It was really hard, especially when I reached the point in the letter where I admit I am feeling like I might be done with our marriage, and she began to cry. But I kept going. I suggested that if there is to be any chance, No guarantee of R that there must be zero contact with AP. Quit job where they both work, and no stipulations open phone policy. I also said that we will be going to a marriage and family therapy counselor of my choosing to either see if we can save our relationship or navigate a healthy separation. I admitted at this point my main motivation to stay would be for the stability for our kids, but I am open to seeing if it could work. I did also get her to admit if our roles were reversed, I'd probably have a packed bag sitting at the end of the driveway. At one point she lashed back out when I admitted I was resentful for how she would treat me poorly anytime I spent time away from home, which really is infrequent, once or twice a month, an evening playing music with friends or something, and started listing the things about me she was unhappy with, mainly not enough date nights. I'm not the most romantic person ever, and we aren't super well off money-wise, so there's that, or special things planned for her. I did my best to gray rock, since my only response probably would have been hurtful. Do you really want to plan special things for someone when it feels like they try to own and control you? And thought this will be a topic for MC later. In the end, I think she does realize it's her fault. She still talks about it like an addiction, and that this was a relapse or slip-up, but it was 3.5 hours of texting, then deleting the messages and not telling me. My point was that she at any time could have stopped and come forward, but was actively choosing the thing that makes her feel good at my expense. I said I needed space and time to see where my head and heart are at, including sleeping in our spare room and heading out of town for a weekend soon to be alone and process. She seems really remorseful, and a half hour after I left to clear my head she texted and said she made the bed in the guest room for me and called her boss and put in her 2 weeks. We have 2 tickets to a concert tonight with her sister and my bill, and she offered to stay home. I'm not really sure what to do about that. I feel crappy making her miss out on this thing she's really been looking forward to, but the thought of sitting there together seems weird right now. Any advice there? I specifically told her I can be kind, helpful and cordial, but I didn't want to pretend things are fine. So we'll see what MC brings about. Any encouragement is welcome, whether for R or something else. Update. Decided to go to the show. It was actually fine, for me anyway. I'm not sure how she felt, and she even offered to scoot down and I sat next to my bill. And the concert was Jacob Collier. If you haven't heard of him, look him up. Not only an amazing musician and performer, but such a positive and joyous force of a human, that I really did feel some kind of healing. Seeking out counselors today for discernment therapy. Did anybody go through that? There need to be genuine consequences for her actions at this point. It's not a relapse or slip up, it is conscious choices she is making. She's also making excuses for herself. She needs to own it. She never told you. Once again you had to catch her. It is a good sign that she put in her notice to get out of AP's sphere of existence. Why would your WW offer to stay home? That's weird if you ask me. Under the circumstances she should go with you as a date. Exactly how I felt. As far as offering to stay home, it is because I specifically said I wasn't sure about going together, so she offered to stay since the tickets were basically a birthday gift for me. Sometimes it's good to take a break and have a good time together. That doesn't mean you have to pretend to be fine. Nor does it mean that what she did is less serious, just that you can enjoy with her and have fun. Part of reconciliation is that having spaces and moments where you can enjoy, laugh, and have a connection. My anniversary is approaching, and we have had a very complicated week, so to speak, and some problems in the family, and that complicated everything. Yesterday we talked a little, and we agreed to take a break and enjoy this next week. And we made a commitment to make an effort in many things that we have to work on. But that all of that should not be an impediment to enjoying this day together. That said, if your mental or emotional state does not allow this right now and you feel that going to the concert with her is going to hurt you, simply explain it to her calmly. But you cannot go with her at the cost of your emotional or mental stability either. It's your decision and you have the right to make it without feeling guilty. Whatever you decide, I hope it will be the best for you. Good luck. I'm thinking about this and am considering going just to enjoy the experience without it being a date, so to speak. Update. Feeling lost, uncertain and just tired. Not sure if I can stay. Long story short, my 41M wife 47F admitted to seeking out the attention of a coworker last summer. I was upset and we talked it through and agreed she shouldn't be contacting him besides necessary work stuff. Then in September I discovered they were still chatting and she had been hiding it. I was floored and unsure of our future, but she seemed remorseful and wanted to make it right. Agreed to no contact but she could stay at her job. Fast forward to that week, and I find out she was texting him for 3.5 hours while out of town with her sister. I confronted her several days later after composing myself and writing my thoughts down. I read her the letter that basically outlined how hurt I was and that I wasn't sure I could still be married. We have 3 middle school aged kids and there are 2 things keeping me in the marriage. Them and the idea that even though she was the unfaithful one, since she doesn't want to end things, I would be the bad guy who ended things. We're heading into discernment therapy next week. Has anyone had any experience in that context? I understand this is other people's experience and I'm really sorry about that, but I would say I'm 99% sure nothing ever happened physically. Despite things not being great for us, I do know this person better than pretty much anyone else and don't see the signs of that. But I agree breaking NC twice is unacceptable regardless. I've been talking to my boss about my wife affair. Since she doesn't want to end things, I would be the bad guy who ended things. Bullshit, and you know it too. She already ended your marriage by cheating. This is 100% on her, period. Her saying this to you is like her telling you that 1 + 1 = 3 and you believe it. That would be bullshit too, just like it's bullshit that you would be ending things. She already ended your marriage. You're only married on paper now, not in each other's heart and actions. It's over. All that remains is to clean up the mess she willingly chose to make. Look, I don't know you, but I imagine that you couldn't even begin to think about doing this to her, or to any partner you had, let alone actually doing this. Well, your wife did this. She didn't just imagine and think about doing this to you. She did it. She and you are really different in terms of people. In her mind it was okay to cheat and now she's trying to blame you if you decide to end things. I'd put that discernment therapy money into a divorce attorney myself, but you do you. If you stay, you will be sitting and lying next to and talking to and planning a future with a person who could not only think of cheating on you, but who actually did it and who thinks so little of you, and what she did that she is blaming you if you decide to end the marriage. Perhaps I was unclear. She hasn't communicated this. It's my own mind telling me that other people and most importantly my kids would think that. I do get what you're saying about being different people. I think this is true in more ways than one. I also struggle with wondering, even if things got better and she changed a ton, I would still have this thing in the back of my mind. No, after this last instance I said the job has to go and she agreed and put in 2 weeks. It bothers me how concerned she is about her reputation there and not wanting people to know why she has to quit. Like her good name is more important than the truth or validation of my feelings. She had initially asked me not to tell my parents back when it all first blew up. Relented, but it was clear she wanted everyone to still think she's great. I finally talked to my mom after this latest revelation. I'm also worried since it is apparently an addiction for her. What's to stop her from finding someone to seek validation from at a different job? She's been in therapy for probably the last 2 years. I think she either holds back with her therapist or the therapist is kind of babying her. Yeah. And I made the mistake of trying to have us do joint counseling with her therapist. Basically just turned into examining my deficiencies. Dropped that after 2 sessions. She has framed it in the context of love addiction and limerence, which makes sense given her personality. basically has relied on various things to escape difficult things in her life consistently as an adult. But it sometimes feels like an excuse, and I've pushed back on that, not letting her frame the repeated offenses as slip-ups or relapses. That's what hurts so much to me. I haven't been perfect in pre-emotional affair, neither has she, but I am mature enough to still honor the loyalty we assumed our relationship was built on. It's important to me that I don't add unneeded turmoil to my kids' lives, so I don't want to drag her through the mud. One day much later though, I hope I can tell them my whole story. There are of course shortcomings I have that contributed to an environment where this kind of betrayal could happen. She would say I am emotionally distant and do not give her the amount of attention, date nights, trips away, that she wants. Never mind that she taught me early on in the marriage, never acted this way while dating, that she is not a safe person for me to share difficult things with. Her reaction always becomes the focal point of the conversation. She has anger management issues, yells at our kids probably once a week. And the one time I confronted her about it, I got, "Don't you think I $$ and no, I have anger problems." On top of that, as soon as we were married, it was like I had no freedom to be my own person, spend time with friends, pursue hobbies, or just recharge alone. Very much an introvert without getting frustrated comments or the cold shoulder. She was holding on so tight. That's not something that inspires more time investment from a person. Update. How long after day did your anxiety stick around? Day 2 was 9 days ago, and in the time I basically haven't stopped sweating, been sick to my stomach and starving at the same time. I lift weights 3 times a week so my body craves calories, have lost 7 pounds and, maybe TMI, been pooping 3-4 times a day instead of my normal 1 time every morning. I know these are all bodily responses to my lizard brain feeling danger, but I can't remember how long after day this stuck around, and was just looking to hear others' experiences dealing with this as well. Side note, posted my story, see previous posts, on our surviving infidelity and man, people there torrent a WW. I guess most people there very hurt and antagonistic towards cheaters. Update. Covert semi-narc spouse? I'm just going to list a few things and you tell me if I'm wrong. She goes out to hang with friends, and if there are still dishes to be done or laundry to be folded when she returns, acts frustrated and says something like, "What were you doing this whole time?" Meanwhile, I'll go out and come back to dirty dishes, messes, etc., and it's like it's no big deal. Constantly snooping on my phone to see if I'm talking with other women. I don't. She never finds anything, and has been upset anytime I have a friendly or professional relationship with a woman she deems attractive. Meanwhile, I find out she is the one who had been texting another man behind my back for 1.5 years, has anger issues and is aware of them. One time after she had screamed at our kids for God knows what, I calmly said, "I really don't like when you yell at our children," and she responded by shouting at me, "You think I don't know I have a fucking anger problem?" That was the last time I brought that up. All her friends and coworkers get this perfect version of her, and the ones closest to her, me and our kids, get to walk on eggshells wondering which version of her is coming into the room, or wondering what thing we do, or don't do, or say or don't say is going to wreck her mood. Just venting. It's hard feeling anxious all the time in your own home. Update. Vacation with in-laws 3 weeks after day number 2? Anyone ever have to go on vacation with your WP and their family soon after day? There's a week-long lake trip scheduled with WW and her dad and all the siblings and families. It would mean sleeping in the same bed as WW, which I haven't done since day number 2 weeks ago, and acting normal in front of everyone for 6 straight days non-stop. That's been hard enough just in the mornings and evenings when we're both around with our kids. I was given the okay not to go, more like I'll understand if you don't want to go, but damn it, my kids are so excited and keep talking about how fun it will be. I know they would be disappointed and sad if I wasn't there, but I just don't know if I have it in me to be in that position for that long. Do I suck it up and try to have a good time with my kids, or learn to let them be disappointed in the interest of protecting my brain and heart? Any personal experience or encouragement one way or the other is welcomed. Update: after reading everyone's comments, I've decided to suck it up and go with them. I'll focus on making great memories with my kids, and I told my WW that if I need to disappear periodically not to give me a hard time. Thanks everybody. Update: wife had an appropriate non-physical relationship with coworker, hid it multiple times, and now I'm considering ending our marriage. Long story short, last summer my wife admitted to seeking out the attention of a male coworker and agreed to stop. In September I discovered she was still messaging him late at night and hiding it. I confronted, and it was a big deal. She again agreed to go no contact except for essential work matters. Things were going well, I thought, until 2 weeks ago, and I discovered she once again had been texting him for 3.5 hours and hiding it. I wrote her a letter saying I wasn't sure I could continue in our marriage. Am I overreacting? Edit: for further context, I read the letter aloud to her so I could get everything out without interruption. There's no evidence of it getting physical, but who knows? The content of their conversations was, as far as I know, non-sexual, friendly but overly familiar. Enough to make me uncomfortable, and she admits that if I had been doing the same with a female coworker she'd be pissed. Currently sleeping in a different room and just keeping the house going and keeping up some normalcy for our 3 kids. Update: did anyone else's WP seem to skip dealing with the infidelity and want to move straight on to addressing problems that led to the affair? Just feeling frustrated that my WW doesn't seem to get that I won't be super motivated to work on our marriage if I can't feel enough trust or respect for her because of what she did. Is this common? How did you deal with it, and how, if you were able, did you get to a point as a BP to want to work on your own negative contributions to your relationship? Update: attachment styles and BP and WP. Curious if anyone here has looked into this in their own relationship. The underlying issue in my marriage that I know my WW would say set the stage for the affair. I don't disagree. But I just am not comfortable opening the door to saying that I caused the affair. Is a difficult combination of someone who is anxiously attached WW and someone who is avoidant attached me. Side note, when I took the test my attachment to my primary caregiver's parents was secure, but attachment in marriage relationship was avoidant. I'm wondering if someone with secure attachment can be pushed into being avoidant? Anyway, I'm just rolling these ideas around in my head, and it makes me wonder if a relationship where we both feel our needs are met is ever possible. The more she wants from me, the less I have to give, which makes her pursue even harder, which makes me retreat even more. We've been doing this dance for over a decade, except that every conversation we've ever had about it is that there's something wrong with me, and I need to change to meet her needs. So I've tried really hard to be more open and emotionally available, even when her anxious pursuit of me makes my brain want to run away. But I'm finding myself exhausted and feeling like maybe this person just doesn't like the kind of person I am, and neither of us will ever feel like we have what we need from a partner. And of course the EA doesn't help me to feel motivated to pursue either. It's also messy. I guess this is more of a rant, but just trying to express some thoughts. Has anybody else's attachment style or introversion/extroversion been a focus for their WP? Update: anyone have success standing up for their needs as an introvert to their non-introverted spouse? I, 41M, have been married to my wife, 47F, for 14 years, and I can never seem to get enough time to myself to feel like myself. I maybe get one evening a week to myself and one long weekend a year where she takes the kids to see her dad. Any other time to myself, I feel like I'm stealing it by staying up late after everyone is in bed or spending time alone at my office at work. I have a flexible work situation, But somehow those times don't feel refreshing for me since I am having to carve them out myself and they're short as well. Whenever I ask my wife for time to myself or say I need alone time, she takes it as an insult and gets upset. She has an anxious attachment style and has trouble being by herself. Side note, I have 3 kids who do take a lot of my time, but somehow don't drain me like being around my wife does. I think it is because they give me the sense that they love and understand that I'm quiet and introverted. Our oldest is a lot like me, but I always feel like my wife thinks I'm a deficient person, because I need a lot less of other people in my life. Anyone have success in communicating your needs in a way that was understood by a spouse similar to mine and resulted in a better balance for your life? Update. Does anyone ever feel like your only option for staying is rug sweeping? I'm in this spot 2 months post day number 2 with my M41 WW's 47F emotional affair where I feel like I have 2 options. Just try not to think about it so I can stay and be a good husband and father. Or let the reality of what she did continue to sink in and want to bail. Does anyone else feel like that? She is frustrated with my progress and are wanting us to be talking about it more often, but I don't really know what else there is for me to say. I also don't know what to do to make progress myself, apart from wait and let her prove bit by bit she is trustworthy. All this also triggers my feelings that she just doesn't like me as a person. I'm an internal processor and need time and space, and I feel like she is a verbal processor, just can't understand that and thinks I'm deficient. My inability to meet her very specific expectations in our relationship has been a constant theme in our marriage. And although she knows it sounds crappy to say, I know she thinks that's what made her look outside our relationship for validation. This turned into a bit of a rant, but really, does anyone relate to this feeling of only having these 2 ways of being? Acknowledging the affair and wanting out, or sweeping it under the rug to stay? Update. WP's actions demotivate me from doing the things she thinks will help our marriage. Check previous posts for backstory. About 2 months since D-Day number 2 EA with coworker, we've had a handful of conversations about our relationship. They all end the same way, with her fixated on what she hasn't gotten from me in our relationship. She is focused on fixing our relationship, and wants me to open up more and pursue her more and plan dates, etc. But after being betrayed by someone who already made me feel emotionally unsafe, anger management issues, I find myself completely unmotivated to put that kind of effort in. She seems impatient with my current progress in IC and anxious to move into MC and work on us, which really feels like get me to change who I am and not be the introverted quiet person I've been my whole life. Did anyone else struggle with this? Did it just take more time? She is in IC, but I've yet to see any real progress. She definitely has voiced multiple times how sorry she is for what she's done, but I was the one to discover both times she was continuing her relationship with this person. I know she just really wants the marriage to work, but it seems like she has a hard time realizing how difficult she's made that with her actions. And through our conversations, I know that she just has no category for someone who relates to people any differently than she does. Like legit would not concede that some people might primarily develop closeness and emotional safety through means other than super intense emotional conversation. Yeah, both of these thoughts make sense. I just can't help feeling like it's somehow all on me to make this better. Learn how to move past the EA through IC. Then be more like the husband she wished she had through MC. I think she would view me not wanting to hear about that stuff as another tick mark in the he's not emotionally available column. When I told her I didn't want to hear about how she still misses the AP, she used that as an excuse to not tell me when he reached out. Then they texted for 3 hours. I checked her phone later and that's when day 2 happened. But you're right, it does seem really unfair and I feel defeated. Man, I'm really sorry, that sounds super rough. What's interesting is my IC has mentioned a couple times the possibility of me being somewhere mildly on the spectrum. Forgive me if that language isn't preferable. And both times I told my WW they said that she brushed it off, like she didn't want me to have a past to be the way that I am. I don't shout, but can definitely shut down or just not even recognize how my emotions are affecting me sometimes, let alone be able to communicate them clearly at the drop of a hat. I need my internal world to process those things, and it takes a lot of time. Sorry you're dealing with this. No one deserves this. It's such a strange dynamic, because on one hand she'll harp on how different she wants me to be, like me changing would save the marriage. Then she'll turn around and say what a messed up person she is. It's this weird dance where I feel bad that she doesn't like the kind of person I am, then console her because she has such a low self-image herself. I feel a little crazy. Update. Discouraging conversation last night. I'm just done. WW still blaming me for EA she had and refuses to try to understand me as a quiet, introverted person. Going to try MC, but in my mind it's hopeless. Last night after dinner, which I made, cleaned up, did dishes, then took out the trash and made 3 lunches for kids, I could tell something was off with my WW. Short responses to things, flat affect, avoiding eye contact, etc. When we were both upstairs brushing our teeth before heading back to wind down, I asked what was the matter. She said, I just feel disconnected. I said, I get it, but I'm not trying to be distant. It was a very busy day, first day of school for 3 kids. And I was staying busy taking care of dinner and all that. She just said I know, then went to tell our kids good night. When we were both back downstairs, I reiterated that I wasn't purposefully distancing myself, despite kind of wanting to and fighting against those feelings all week. She then launches into the standard complaint conversation she has about me, that she doesn't feel connected to me, and I don't need her, and that she's just felt alone our entire marriage. In therapy, I've been trying to own my avoidant attachment without discounting my real needs as an introverted person for space and time to myself. So I tried to explain that I understood her feelings, but her anxious and constant pursuit of me doesn't leave me with any space to actually need more of her. I was also able to be honest that when I remember her EA with a coworker that lasted months, that I had to discover twice, I'm demotivated to try and work on these things. Then she threw in my face, don't you see that bad decision came from me desperately wanting connection? I tried to explain that there could have been many other things she could have done instead. She mentioned that she had told me a few times before she thought we should do couples therapy. I can only remember her saying it once, and she never followed up or made an appointment, and really didn't press the issue hard. Like if she had said, I don't think our marriage will survive if we don't get into therapy, I would have agreed and started right away. But the lack of effort on her part, and refusal to understand that someone can have different needs than her, makes me realize she still sees this whole thing as my fault. She could not understand that my need for time to myself isn't about her. It's about my needs as an individual. She kept turning it back on herself, saying, so you just want less of me. It was clear we were then going in circles. I said that we were stuck and I was getting overwhelmed, so I just said I'm going to stop talking now and go up to bed. I went up, put some music on headphones and dozed off before she came up. Since she refuses to put in effort herself, I said I'll set up an appointment for us, and I will. But at this point I think it's over. I know I'm not perfect, but she has become even more anxious and angry following day 2, and I'm just fucking miserable. My kids will all be at the same school next August, so I'm hoping I can stick it out or work out an in-home separation till then. Could really use some encouragement. I only started doing so much when she started doing less and less over the past few years as her anxiety and depression have gotten worse. She's been in IC for years, but I see little progress there, and now there's a lot of stuff that will get like 75% done then left to sit for weeks, or just left undone unless I do it. TBH, at this point our house would stop functioning if I did any less. I feel sad for your brother-in-law. and sad for myself. I think she doesn't want to be married to me, but is too scared to be on her own. She doesn't exactly function like an adult right now. I think she also is scared what her family would think. Very religious background. She makes it sound like she's been miserable the whole 14 years. But she also has a pattern of letting her current emotional state color the entirety of her memory, so who knows? And as far as the affair turning physical, I guess I can't be completely certain since she lied and hid it for so long. But she worked with a family member as well, and I think they would have pushed her to confess everything. I also just know that she rationalized the affair by never letting get physical, so it could seem more palatable in her mind. Yup, I think she actually is self-absorbed, and I don't blame her. Her mom was a shitty role model and is 50 times more dysfunctional than her. But it's really the unwillingness to see things from my perspective that feels hopeless. And that's been bugging me too, that I am kind of a dream husband in a lot of ways. That sounds really conceited, but I know how some of the men I know act at home, and I think their wives would kill for someone like me. I'm helpful, do more than my fair share around the house. I'm available, supportive of her passions and pursuits, thoughtful, kind, stable and patient. I feel like I deserve better. Update. Feeling deeply misunderstood by my wife. Some background. I caught my wife in an emotional affair with a coworker twice, once in September 2023, and again, same person, about 3 months ago. Been attempting to reconcile, but last night, we had a conversation that was very discouraging for me, and made it clear she refuses to try and understand our differences in any way other than there's something wrong with me. Wife still blaming me for emotional affair she had and refuses to try to understand me as a quiet, introverted person. Going to try couples counseling, but in my mind it's hopeless. Last night after dinner, which I made, cleaned up, did dishes, then took out the trash and made 3 lunches for kids, I could tell something was off with my wife. Short responses to things, flat affect, avoiding eye contact, etc. When we were both upstairs brushing our teeth before heading back to wind down, I asked what was the matter. She said, I just feel disconnected. I said, I get it, but I'm not trying to be distant. It was a very busy day, first day of school for 3 kids. And I was staying busy taking care of dinner and all that. She just said I know, then went to tell our kids good night. When we were both back downstairs, I reiterated that I wasn't purposefully distancing myself, despite kind of wanting to and fighting against those feelings all week. She then launches into the standard complaint conversation she has about me, that she doesn't feel connected to me, and I don't need her, and that she's just felt alone our entire marriage. In therapy, I've been trying to own my avoidant attachment without discounting my real needs as an introverted person for space and time to myself. Although when I've tested attachment, I get secure attachment styles for all my relationships except my marriage, which makes me think I'm a securely attached person pushed into avoidant by anxious activation behaviors. Through our entire marriage, my wife has given me very little space to myself, and any time I've asked for it, she takes offense that I don't want to be around her. So I tried to explain that I understood her feelings, but her anxious and constant pursuit of me doesn't leave me with any space to actually need more of her. I was also able to be honest that when I remember her emotional affair with a coworker that lasted months, that I had to discover twice, I'm demotivated to try and work on these things. Then she threw in my face, don't you see that bad decision came from me desperately wanting connection? So blaming her affair on my introversion and avoidant attachment, I tried to explain that there could have been many other things she could have done instead. She mentioned that she had told me a few times before she thought we should do couples therapy. I can only remember her saying it once, and she never followed up or made an appointment, and really didn't press the issue hard. Like if she had said, I don't think our marriage will survive if we don't get into therapy, I would have agreed and started right away. But the lack of effort on her part, and refusal to understand that someone can have different needs than her makes me realize she still sees this whole thing as my fault. She could not understand that my need for time to myself isn't about her. It's about my needs as an individual. She kept turning it back on herself, saying, "So you just want less of me." It was clear we were then going in circles. I said that we were stuck and I was getting overwhelmed, so I just said, "I'm going to stop talking now and go up to bed." I went up, put some music on headphones and dozed off before she came up. Since she refuses to put in effort herself, I said I'll set up an appointment for us, and I will. But at this point I think it's over. I know I'm not perfect, but she has become even more anxious and angry following the discovery of her emotional affair, and I'm just fucking miserable. My kids will all be at the same school next August, so I'm hoping I can stick it out or work out an in-home separation till then. Could really use some encouragement. It's not wrong for me to stand up for my needs as an introvert, right? I agree it seems we're just incompatible, but from her words you'd get the sense I'm an emotionless, nonverbal shut-in who never spends any time with her or our kids, when in reality I engage with her and our kids all the time, and even talk about hard things, in a calm, non-confrontational manner. I probably spend 2 evenings a month not at home. The rest of the time I am home by 5 from work and around, helpful, taking care of her and our kids, or playing board games with them. You know what set her off last night? I sat down to play the guitar in the living room for 10 minutes after doing everything for dinner and cleaning up. I didn't retreat, just did something quietly to unwind for a few minutes. Never mind the fact that she'll do the same thing all the time. Sit down at the piano for a couple minutes to play a song. Did. I have definitely distanced somewhat since the affair. All those things. Many times a day, giving gentle non-sexual touches, words of affirmation, hugs, holding hands while doing other things. It honestly feels like there's a bottomless pit that she thinks I could somehow fill up. But when she tries to extract that from me, it does feel smothering. And yes, she had a very emotionally unavailable caregiver growing up.